Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots, see the light, brought to you by Botanica Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
Hey, what's going on, man? Happy to be here. Happy Sunday, everybody. Absolutely. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your weekend. It's been pretty busy here, man. How's life with you?
Everything's good, brother. Everything is everything. Kids are getting bigger, you know. Just trying to keep up with them, and life is good. Life is good, like Future said.
Yeah, well, guys, if you do want to keep up with our channel, you can join our membership program /platform. It's real simple. Just right under this video, there's a Join Now button. It takes you to 3 different tiers. You can choose and pick your poison. We have extra episodes just for you guys, live shows, discounts on merch, you name it. And, yeah, real simple. So I think you all should do it, you know, just because we are a tight-knit community and we love to have you guys. So what's on the agenda today?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're coming out with Animals in Ifa Part 2.
So, Part 2.
Yeah,
Part
I'm
2.
a big fan of this topic because I'm an animal lover. You know, me and pets, we have some issues because I really, you know, cleaning up after them is definitely a chore. You know, when you have kids, though, you kind of get shanghaied into having a couple of them. I love them. But I tell you, when you look at the animals that Ifa identified as being divine and being even celestial to a certain degree, it's really rich mythology. I mean, when you look at Ifa is really nothing more than a compendium or compilation of nature watching escapades. Basically, before there was television and all these other things that occupy our time, like telephones and social media, they would just watch animals all day because there was really nothing else to do. So based on that, within a sign and within an occurrence, they started associating certain animals to certain 𝗀𝗲𝗿s and patakis and Ase O. And then all of a sudden we have thousands of pages of information that could actually help us in our daily life. So that's really all it is, was just one big nature watching compilation.
Do you have a favorite animal?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're going to be going over it today. I mean, in the last episode, we talked about animals in general, the theology behind their position within the grand scheme of the universe and the reincarnation process and sacrifice and a couple different things. And then we talked about what each animal kind of represents within the sacrificial scope. And then we went into a really great pataki about the elephant and whatnot. I have to say, honestly, my favorite animal is the leopard, which is actually who we're going over today. And, you know, before, you know, I became a head of household and had a family and all these things, you know, you have a lot of free time on your hands. And I was a big National Geographic guy. Like, that was pretty much what I would watch. And I think the reason I did that was because I knew that Ifa had a lot to do with animals in Africa and the big cats and, you know, these gargantuan things that live over there. I said, let me start observing them. And maybe this will give me a head start on Ifa. So, you know, Erica will tell you, sometimes we disconnect. She had a very early work schedule. I didn't at all. So I would stay up all night just watching, like, documentaries on different animals and things like that. And ironically, it served me really well when I did Ifa, because when I started studying Ifa, I started realizing, everything that I had been watching all these years, I have all of these counterpoints of reference to be able to speak on a concept, even though I didn't literally know 𝗀𝗲𝗿 yet, because I was always very respectful of the literature before I got my license. But, like, for example, with the leopard, you know, all of the documentaries and things I had seen, actually my sign of 𝗃𝗏𝗃 speaks very heavily of the leopard. When any sign spoke about the leopard, I knew enough about that animal to be able to divine for that person pretty seamlessly. Because when you begin to learn that we are nothing more than reincarnations of the animals that are affiliated with our sign, you begin to be able to identify certain characteristics and traits within people knowing the animal. So, for example, my Odu speaks heavily about the leopard, the peacock, the elephant, a couple different ones, and they all kind of represent a different aspect of my personality. And the really great thing about this series, specifically with Ifa and animals, is that it really has no reason to end, because when you look at one animal, like the elephant, right? We were able to get into the story from 𝗃𝗗𝗃 last time, but there's multiple Odus that speak of that animal, whether it's a 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗶, whether it's 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗶𝗲, whether it's, 𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀. There's so many different Odus that speak about different aspects of that animal, just like with the leopard, just like with the peacock, the rat, the fish. There's so many different angles to go with. So it's really a series that, could go on forever, because one thing is to get into each animal once, but then when you start delving into the specific animal and the different aspects of its character, it's just very, very nourishing content. So, but with the leopard, there's a story that always comes to mind, and it's in the Odu of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗃, which is also known as 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗃, which means Iru, tail, 𝗃𝗃, the leopard. So in the Odu of 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗃, which is another name for 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗃, was where the leopard was being constructed. He was going to be the perfect animal, and Olodumare was taking his time with him, right? So they got about 99% done, and the leopard started looking at himself and realizing, oh my God, look how beautiful I am, look how robust I am, look how strong I am, all of these different things. And Olodumare realized, he was ready to go down from heaven to earth and get started, with his life. But he told him, I need you to be patient, because you're missing one piece that is going to be super critical in your success. So I need you to just wait one more day. And the leopard was like, all right. And of course he didn't listen. And he came down from heaven to earth, right? So when he came down, immediately everybody was in awe. They were like, oh my God, we have never seen anything this elegant, this grandiose, this fierce, And, he started strutting around. People started, complimenting him. Some people say Shango was the leopard in this sign. And, but after a while, he started getting hungry. He started feeling the necessities of life, of organic material. So he said, I'm hungry, and he really wasn't in the mood for some bread. He wanted some protein. So he saw an antelope, and he said, I'm going to eat that antelope, right? So, he hunted, he stalked, he pounced, and he almost got it, but the antelope kind of, jetted away. He chased after it, but the antelope made a sharp left turn, and when the leopard tried to turn, he wasn't able to. He could only run in a linear direction. So he said, this could prove difficult, So he tried again, failed with another antelope. He tried again, failed with a wildebeest, or whatever it is that was their natural prey. So he started getting desperately hungry. So, he tried to catch a lizard. He tried to anything. He couldn't catch anything because he had difficulties being able to drop on a dime, as far as direction. So he ended up dying of hunger. And
what?
Yeah. And when he went back to heaven, he was thrust in front of Olodumare, and he said, you lied to me. You lied to me. You said I was going to be perfect, and I couldn't even fend for myself or feed myself. He said, I told you to wait, and you didn't listen, right? Now you have to go visit Orunmila so he can perform divination for you, and you could pay off this celestial debt because of your disobedience when you could have had everything for free. So when he went to visit Orunmila, the Odu of 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗃 was revealed, or 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. And Orunmila said he needed to perform sacrifice to be able to get the last piece he was missing. So when he did the sacrifice, he did sacrifice with Iru, or Irukere, which was actually the Babalawo's horsetail, right? But Orunmila took it and stuck it behind him. And thus, from that, it morphed and evolved into the leopard's tail. So he said, this has been the secret to my success. He said, didn't you notice you couldn't turn on a dime? It's because you couldn't leverage your body weight. you were so explosive and you were going at such a high speed and velocity in said direction that there was no way for you to be able to turn. So the leopard said, all right, let's test it out. Send me down. And when he sent him down, he went to hunt the antelope again. And based on now having a tail that could anchor him in another direction, he was able to turn on a dime, and he caught the antelope and was able to survive till this day. So that's why this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 is known as 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃, or 𝗃𝗏 is the tail of the leopard, because in this sign, the leopard was so ambitious, he came down from heaven without a tail, thinking his teeth were enough, his nails were enough, his head was enough. He needed balance. And I always, when I actually heard this patakis that was actually gifted to me by a brother from my lineage, his godfather is a very storied guy. I was very appreciative because I had always wondered, because whenever anybody talks about 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃, everybody talks about the story in 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃 where the leopard scratched 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃. We're going to get into that one now as well, because it speaks very heavily of this animal in this 𝗀𝗲𝗍. But it never really made reference to the tail. So when he dropped this one on me, I was like, good God, thank you so much. But it speaks of the leopard's character from the very beginning. So, like, let's say you were ever to consult somebody with this sign and the leopard is the animal that's manifesting them. I mean, there's so much cloth to cut, as we like to say. This 𝗀𝗲𝗍 could say, be careful with ambition. Be careful investing too much into an enterprise that you're not going to be able to see the results from or of. Patience, humility, allowing yourself to be guided and mentored. I mean, when you talk about the leopard, before we get into the next patakis, the leopard is seen as the perfect animal within our mythology and within Africa. It is the one animal that holds the same position amongst all the traditional faiths. Like, if you look at our brother mayomberos, right, or the practitioners of mayombe, the leopard for them, if I recall correctly, is referred to as Ngo, right, which makes reference to the leopard, right? Or when you look at the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 society or the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 society that the brother 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗏s pertain to, once again, they are known as the Leopard Society. So across Africa, especially with the tribes and clans that arrived in Cuba, and then when you look at Benin and Dahomey, like the king even wears a leopard skin wherever he goes. It is seen as the apex predator. Now, most people, in the Western side of the world say, well, the lion is the king of the jungle. But here's the thing, and they both have positive and negative traits, but when you look at the leopard, he is completely independent and self-sufficient. He is motivated. He is ambitious. He is lethal. He is fierce. And he does most of what he does alone. He is a solitary animal, where the other big cats show more of a pride, clan, group mentality. I mean, the leopard, is pretty solitary other than key moments, and we'll get into that patakis as well as to why. But when you look at the lion sometimes within cultural mythology of Africa is frowned upon, and the reason being is because he is seen as lazy.
What?
Where if you look at the pride of lions, the ones who actually do the hunting are the females.
Yep, I heard that.
So they only need him when they need to bring down something huge, like a buffalo or a giraffe or, whatever it is, a wildebeest, whatever they can't handle. There's a special growl or roar that they do, and he knows, okay, it's time for me to get up and go do things. So that's why the leopard is seen as more lethal or more admirable than the lion. Now, mind you, I also really appreciate the lion as well, and we'll probably get into him at some point, because the lion is a father. When we kind of look at the day and age that we're living in, where men are seen as so expendable or so disposable, the lion is a reminder of the importance of the masculine presence within the home. Because someone could look at that situation and be like, oh, they don't need him anyway. The ladies, they'll hunt and they'll raise the children and all these other things. But what they don't realize is that presence is enough to stabilize things. That confidence that he provides, whether he's sleeping 23 hours a day or not, when they need him, he's there. He's with his children. you know, the cubs are biting on him. Every now and again he has to roar. They get scared. They come back. It's kind of reminiscent of fatherhood. You know, sometimes, you know, you go home, you're on the couch, you know, all these different things. You're not really doing much. You've worked all day. But at the same time, you know, just that masculine presence can avoid certain situations. You know, it's so key because when dad is home, it makes people think twice about certain things, you know, like maybe I shouldn't say that around him, or maybe I should do this, or he asked this. And it's not fear, it's respect, it's harmony, you know, where there's that balancing factor. And me coming from an Afro-Caribbean home, you know, being raised around these very strong-willed matriarchs, you began to realize the reason they were able to, you know, take such influence over the home is because, you know, dad was always able to provide that stability as well and that counterpart energy. So the lion has great traits as well, but strictly based on evolution, the leopard is seen as being superior, even though, you know, it might not be the best father, the best partner, or the best of any of those regards, but there are other traits that ultimately it is the ideal behavior. In the 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗍, once more, it speaks of when 𝗃𝗏𝗏 initiated the leopard, right, as a man of Ifa, or a priest of Ifa. Once again, the 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗶 speaks of when the original priests of Ifa were actually animals, right? So when he initiated the leopard showed great talent, ambition, charisma. He was becoming really into his own. He was doing extremely well. But it got to the point where the leopard felt that he was superior to his elder, where he didn't have to take 𝗃𝗏𝗏 into account, where he was able to kind of, you know, flirt with the possibility of replacing 𝗃𝗏𝗏. So one day, 𝗃𝗏𝗏, you know, reprimanded the leopard because he was being a little lackadaisic with his practice. He was being a little arrogant. He was trying to advise him, you know, to maintain a good social, you know, standing. And the leopard became so frustrated with 𝗃𝗏𝗏, or so impatient, or so disrespectful, that he scratched 𝗃𝗏𝗏. And when this occurred, 𝗃𝗏𝗏 didn't do or say anything. He just completely distanced himself from the leopard. So the leopard said, all right, now I'm the guy now, right? But based on his character flaws, based on people seeing him, you know, attack his master and all these different things, everyone turned their back on him. Like, no one wanted to deal with him, interact with him. They saw him as a danger, all of these different things. He was actually going hungry because at this point he wasn't hunting for himself. He was just receiving offerings based on his Ifa practice. So when he saw himself in dire straits, he went and visited his godfather, you know, hat in hand. And 𝗃𝗏𝗏 didn't welcome him into the house, but he listened to him. And the leopard said, I want to apologize for my disrespect. I wasn't in the right state of mind. I was being clouded by arrogance, you know, and I want you to take me back. And 𝗃𝗏𝗏, you know, they say he got emotional. He teared and he said, I can't ever trust you again, right? But you are my son, so I don't want to see you starve either. So they say that, you know, either the leopard's claws or his tail, basically the formation of the body of the leopard is in this 𝗃𝗏𝗏. 𝗃𝗏𝗏 gave him the tools necessary to be able to hunt and survive on his own, where he told the leopard, you know, you're never allowed back in the home, but you'll be able to survive where you're going, you know, and no one will ever take advantage of you, you know. And the leopard realized that at that moment there's actions we can't come back from. Until this day, you know, the sound individual doesn't let a leopard in its home, or any of the big cats for that matter. But, you know, money makes people creative. So that's a big explanation there as to why, you know, all of these things manifested in this sign. This is actually the 𝗃𝗏𝗏 why when the babalawo, or the practitioner, is going to interact with Ifa, they shouldn't have jewelry on their hands, because they say that, you know, the jewelry scratches up against 𝗃𝗏𝗏's icon and fetishes and things like that. And, you know, it causes him discomfort, kind of like when the leopard scratched him. So all of those taboos first manifested here. So pretty sad story, but pretty explicatory as well why, you know, you shouldn't have big cats in your home. You know, you ever see those videos?
Yeah, man,
it's terrifying.
I mean, in Dubai, man, they be having them tigers and stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I think it's a cheetah. They don't growl; they meow at you.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy because they sound cute, but they will rip your face off.
Yeah, no, and actually, you know, being the fastest cat if you ever look at, I think the best example of the first story that I mentioned with the leopard would be the cheetah, because a cheetah will be hauling it 70 miles an hour or whatever they're doing, and then literally change direction on a dime. And when you look at them do it, it's because of the tail that they're able to balance and leverage themselves in a way where they're able to change direction without losing enough speed to actually be able to hunt, you know. But the cheetah is actually the smallest one. And we can get into, there's actually a story where they interacted, the leopard and the cheetah. Because if you notice, those two cats are the ones that kind of look the most alike compared to the other ones. I mean, obviously the jaguars in South America, it's kind of leopard-ish. It's probably just, you know, the leopard that left Africa. But in the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲, it actually speaks of the leopard once again. And the leopard was very interested in practicing Ifa. He was very interested in becoming a man of Ifa. And he was looking for somebody to initiate him. So he got read. He was a free agent. He got read with the elephant. He got read with, I don't know, the lion, the rhino, whatever animals were initiated at that point, the hippo, the crocodile. And he really didn't resonate with any of them. There was something about them that he just couldn't, you know, get to that next level with. So he was kind of giving up on the whole Ifa thing, and he saw that, you know, there was another Ifa priest kind of on the outskirts in the savannah that was offering readings and whatnot, or initiation. So he went and visited, and it ended up actually being the cheetah. So when he got the reading, the leopard was very satisfied, and he realized that the cheetah was actually the most wise or logical of the 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏s he had interacted with up until that point. But the issue he was having was the cheetah's appearance or the cheetah's demeanor. Like, the leopard would roar, and like you said, the cheetah would meow. So he wasn't really impressed. Like, this animal didn't have like the pomp or the presence that the other ones did, where the other ones were kind of arrogant and large and, you know, real intense. The cheetah was real subtle. He was real to the point. So the leopard made this known to the cheetah. He said, I like you. I can see that you know more Ifa than anybody, but your vibe is very different from everybody else's. Like, you know, based on your situation, I would be selecting you for completely different reasons. I would be selecting everybody else, you know? And the cheetah said, that might be why you need me the most, because if you continue the way you're going, or you try to emulate all these other arrogant priests, you could find yourself in a very negative situation. He said, if you look at me as an animal, you know, I'm always eating. I'm never missing food per se. And the leopard noticed that. The leopard noticed that the most consistent of animals is the cheetah. It's the one that has the highest catch rate based on its speed and its cunning and all these other things. And the leopard realized, you know, he could really utilize that. So, you know, he took a leap of faith. He went against what was popular at the moment. Kind of like you have some people now who select godparents because of TikTok or YouTube, or, you know, do they have a big, you know, gold chain? Or are they pushing a Benz, or, you know, whatever fitted they're wearing at that point? The leopard focused on essence, and he decided to initiate with the cheetah into Ifa in the 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗏𝗏. And when he did, the cheetah literally taught him everything. He taught him about the arts of Ifa. He taught him how to hunt. Some people say that this is one of the 𝗿𝗲s where the cheetah gifted his spots to the leopard. That's why when you look at their skin, you see that similarity. They say that the leopard was able to gain those marks and things like that from his elder, which ultimately served him to be able to camouflage himself and, you know, be able to provide for himself. And the leopard actually became very loyal to the cheetah, to the point where he garnered an aptitude where the cheetah said, you don't need me anymore. You know, you've learned everything you've needed to learn. I'll always be here as a resource for you, but I'm very proud of you. And you're now a man of Ifa, or an animal of Ifa, however you want to look at it, metaphorically. And from what I understand, those animals really don't interact negatively. You know, when you look at like who robs the cheetah's food the most, it's probably the lion or the hyena. But I can't remember in all of my viewing of National Geographic seeing those two animals really have issues. So it might be a result of their interaction based on this 𝗿𝗲𝗍. But in the 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗏𝗏 was actually where the cheetah initiated the leopard as a 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 and basically taught him everything he knew, even though in the modern day the leopard is seen as a superior predator. He learned everything from the cheetah. So
nice. You ever zoo books?
Yeah, definitely. You know, just the concept of loyalty for sure. There's another patakis here that speaks a lot about the appearance of the of the leopard as well. In the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗂𝗋, it speaks of when the flame, or ina, and the leopard, or 𝗃, were best friends. But there was a little bit of a frustration that was going on because the leopard would go and visit the flame, but the flame would never visit the leopard. So the leopard one day told the flame, he said, "Why don't you come to my house?" And the flame was like, "Well, I'm pretty toxic. You know, I don't think you want me in your home. You know, I don't have that socialization to know how to conduct myself in other people's homes." And the leopard was appalled. He said, "Oh, do you think my house isn't good enough? You know, we've been friends. Like, how could you insult me this way?" All of these different things. And the flame was like, "Are you sure you want me to go to your house? I don't want you to think I'm insulting you. I'm trying to help you." And the leopard was like, "If you don't come to my house, I'm going to take it as a personal insult," right?
Jeez.
So the leopard was at home and the flame visited. And very quickly, the leopard realized why the flame never was invited by anybody to their homes. As soon as the flame came in, he started completely lighting everything ablaze. And the leopard couldn't get out quick enough. So he got burned, severely burned. So they say either he licked his own wounds or 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 helped him. Whatever the version was, he ultimately healed from it. But from the embers were born his spots. So in the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗂𝗋, it says that historically, spiritually, the spots of the leopard are the result of the embers burning his skin, you know, and him licking them back to health. So when you look at this 𝗀𝗲, how does a leopard get its spots? It gets its spots through pain. So it's a reminder that any status or anything that we accomplish or have is nothing short of painful. You know, you look at some people who have accomplished certain things or levels of success, you know, unfortunately there's people who have character flaws such as envy, where they're like, "Oh, I want that," or "Why them, not me?" But you don't know what that person's been through to get to the point they're at. You know, all the pain and everything that comes with it. I remember my grandmother used to tell me, never envy anybody because you'll envy their pain. And pain is not enviable, you know, especially somebody else's. Everybody has to go through their own anyway, so don't try to replace yours with theirs. You know, but the spots of the leopard were born in 𝗀𝗂𝗋. In the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗂𝗋, it speaks as well of the courting ritual or the lifestyle of the leopard, you know. When you look at the sacrifice of Ifa, you are basically reenacting a leopard hunting, right? This is in the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗂𝗋 or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, which literally means the two cats, or the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗹𝗁𝗃. And for example, when we're going to start a sacrifice, the first part is, at least in the Lukumi, in 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, it's a little more streamlined and they don't focus literally on the leopard like that. So it'll mean 𝗃𝗵𝗃 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 𝗃𝗵𝗃. So when you go through those first parts, like the 𝗃𝗵𝗃 or the 𝗃𝗶𝗍, it's basically saying we're going to sacrifice this animal and we're going to send it to heaven. But at the end, when you hear 𝗃𝗵𝗃 𝗃𝗵𝗃 means 𝗃, the leopard, is going to eat. 𝗃𝗵𝗃, blood is going to fall, right? So it's making reference to the leopard. All of this is in 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗂𝗋 and 𝗀𝗶𝗸𝗏. I'm going to get into the patakis now, but specifically with the song, for example, we are saying that the Orishas are like the leopard, ultimately. So this concept comes from a story, which the 𝗀𝗲 escapes me because I've never been able to really finalize which 𝗀𝗲 this is from. I have a couple hypotheses, but I haven't stated it just due to a lack of, you know, firmness. But there's an old patakis where it says that Shango was trying to become king. He was trying to earn his space in society, and he needed to have an act of valor to be able to substantiate him being king. So kind of like in pure Spartan 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗶 fashion, they thrust him into the jungle. And when they did, he came face to face with the leopard. And they say that he fought the leopard, he killed the leopard, and that he ate the leopard and that he put the skin on. And when he came back, you know, they basically gave him the title of 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗁 or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗁. And when you translate that, it means king of the leopards, or the king is who we salute of the leopards, right? And there's plenty of Chango brothers and sisters who have that name, and it's a beautiful name. So that's why, based on that concept, which more than likely is in 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗍, but, you know, they still got a little more studying to do to finalize that. That's why the Orisha is identified as the leopard, because he ate the leopard. So it's seen as the apex predator. There's no predator more fierce than Orisha, because Shango actually ate the leopard. So now he was of their dominion. So that's why when you're sacrificing something, you could say 𝗃𝗶𝗿𝗃 erande kounjeng, or 𝗃𝗶𝗿𝗃. Shango is like the leopard. Erande kounje means meat the leopard eats, right? So it's all a reenactment of this, you know, natural theater of consistently seeing the leopard sacrifice things. If you notice where we sacrifice specifically, it has to, you know, do with the jugular and the vein and whatnot. And that's actually, if you look at the big cat, specifically the leopard, that's where it grabs to be able to sever that, to, you know, cause all of the nerves and things to go limp. And so the animal doesn't give that much resistance. And that's usually where the insertion occurs. So all of it is a reenactment of these things, even to the point at the end, and this one is definitely 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗍, where we actually test the weight of the animal before lifting it. Is a reenactment for anybody that, you know, has watched National Geographic or any recording. When you see a leopard have the animal in his mouth, he tests the weight before he jumps up into the tree, the same way we test the weight of the animal before we lift it after a sacrifice. So all of this is within the mythology. Literally, without the leopard, we have no spirituality, and all of these things were innovated or manifested through observing this beautiful animal. But in the 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗁, it speaks of the lifestyle of the leopard. And, you know, the leopard is a pretty solitary animal. It doesn't overstimulate itself. And it's pretty absentee for the most part, where this 𝗃𝗲 states that leopards come together only for very key needs or processes. So, for example, leopards come together when it's time to hunt. The 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗁 stipulates, where, you know, one leopard, you know, if they're hunting together, particularly mates when they're about to procreate, one will go for the neck to kind of sever what it needs to, you know, facilitate transition, and the other one will actually, you know, hold down the body, so that, you know, the animal doesn't get away or cause any harm to the animal trying to do what it's doing above. So they get together when it's time to hunt.
It's a tag team.
Exactly. So the other time is when they're going to procreate, right? Where they come together to be able to, you know, have offspring and whatnot and mate. But after that, they really don't have too much to do with each other. You know, they're very solitary animals. Like the male leaves because the female's trying to kill him, you know. She kind of raises them on their own. The guy kind of fluctuates around, but for the most part, he's absentee. So, like, the 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗁 kind of speaks of how, you know, not everything about even the most glorious of animals is translatable or positive for us. You know, when we look at a relationship, a real union, matrimony, all of these different things, you know, we have to do much more than just fulfill our needs with each other. You know, it's much more than bills. It's much more than, you know, intimacy. It's much more than just any of these different things. You know, the emotional bonds that human beings have formed or have a need for, we're meant to learn from the mistakes of the leopard, because ideally the leopard would not behave this way. It wouldn't just come together when it's hungry or come together when it's trying to procreate. You know, ideally it would be almost like a lion concept, but then that leads to other things as well. So each of these beings was basically put here to teach us something differently. It's just a matter of having the humility, patience, and interpretive skill to understand what's really occurring here and what we can learn from it. But the leopard's awesome. I mean, to bring it full circle, you know, my 𝗃𝗲 speaks very heavily of this animal. In the 𝗃𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗃, it speaks of when the leopard and the python were compadres, or they were godfathers to each other's children. And, you know, the leopard was always saying, hey, I'd do anything for your son, whatever you need, ask me for anything, because the snake would actually shed his skin and provide it to the leopard's son to make sure he was warm during the winter. So one day, the snake decided to test the leopard's, authenticity, right? And one day, the snake went to the leopard and say, hey, I always give my skin to your son. I need your skin to give to my son because I'm not able to provide for both this time. And the leopard really never had any intention of reciprocating the snake's, generosity and loyalty. So rather than say, hey, I can't accomplish that, he actually killed his mate, skinned her, and gave the skin to the python.
Dang.
And the python looked at him and said, man, what a 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 you are. You'd rather sacrifice anybody to maintain the state of your own ego. And that's why till this day, cats and snakes really don't mesh. This 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁, my 𝗃𝗲𝗃, speaks heavily of not making promises we can't keep or signing checks we can't cash. So it says that the person has to be authentic, has to live their truth, has to not, over-exaggerate who they are. And it's very important to remain sound and humble and accountable for everything that leaves our mouth. But even more so, focusing on the leopard, the lesson here is that, when we look at it as an animal, there's certain things that certain animals can do that others can't. Like, and I'm sure we'll come out with an episode on the snake because it's one of my favorites as well. It's actually the most dignified animal within that 𝗃𝗲𝗃 specifically, but in general, it's an animal that, it had its shortcomings, but it was actually very loyal to Ifa. And, it shows that just the impression of something is not enough to pass judgment on it. Because for the most part, at least in Western civilization, we look at snakes and we're like, oh my God, the traitor, the Jungle Book, all these different things. When in reality, the snake, was very loyal in this 𝗃𝗲𝗃. But then you look at the character of the leopard tried to appear to be one thing and was another. So it's very important, authenticity on any level. But definitely an amazing animal. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, man. These stories, I love how they explain how things are, like with the leopard getting its spots.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got one for the tiger. How tiger got its stripes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got something like that.
We actually went over that one. Like when you look at the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃, we touched on that patakis, which isn't very common as well, because a lot of people are like, well, hey, if Ifa's like 5,000-10,000 years old, tigers weren't there. So how do you have patakis on tigers? Well, we really don't know where our literature comes from. Some of it has been assimilated, but, it might be at that divine moment where it's able to progress through the test of time and practice. Like the tiger gained his stripes from a beatdown. So originally when tigers were born, they didn't have stripes. So the young tiger saw the older tigers with stripes, but he didn't have any. So he was like, those are amazing. I want those. So he went to his father. He said, I want my stripes now. And his dad was like, you don't want your stripes now. I'm telling you. And the baby tiger persisted and persisted and persisted. And the other tigers started hearing. And his father wasn't able to defend the point anymore. So one night he got kidnapped, Roots style. And they threw him into the jungle. And they started scratching him, right? And they basically left him half dead. Similar story. He had to lick his wounds. And from the scars of the scratches, the stripes manifested. So when he came out of the jungle and was recognized, his father congratulated him. He was very proud of him. He handled the, getting jumped in very well. And he looked at his son. He said, were you ready? He said, no, Dad, I wasn't. And his father looked at him and said, nobody ever is. So it's a reminder that, once again, we don't know what people go through to accomplish what it is that they have, whether it's a degree, whether it's a subscribership, whether it's an establishment. Respect other people's sacrifices. Envy is really the most counterproductive emotion or action in nature. And it takes much more work and fortitude to accomplish something than to just focus on somebody else having something that you'd like to have, but you're not willing to work for. So it's a resounding message from the leopard.
Nice.
Awesome.
Okay. How many more animals you want to do? Because we can
go
go all day.
Oh yeah, bro. No. I mean, this is I spoke to E about it, and I said, there's really, Ifa really like I said, when you look at 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗍, the basis of our literature is animals completely. And it's crazy because, like, for example, like when you look at somebody's sign and you look at the animals associated with it, if you observe somebody long enough and you kind of compare their behavior, you will always see those commonalities. You know, the idea is to live the positive aspect, because all animals, even humans, have a positive and a negative. You know, when you look at the leopard, I could have literally sat here and talked about all the wonderful things that the leopard is, which I did, but we also have to speak about the shortcomings, because where we learn is from the shortcomings, where we learn is from failure. Ideally, the most successful people seek failure. And it's not that they're trying to fail or make a mistake, but they go so hard that they go beyond their limitations to be able to seek new ones. But in that process, you have to have failed. Like, for example, if I'm going to the gym and I'm trying to get a PR on the bench, I got to fail to be able to rip that muscle tissue, rest, repair, train, polish my form to be able to reach a new peak. So it's the same thing with any of these energies or any of these beings. I mean, some people even hypothesize that, you know, are we the aliens? Are the animals the aliens? Like, you know, are they the higher beings? Are they so above us that they don't even speak to us? 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗍𝗶 says at one point we had that relationship and they saw our behavior and they wanted nothing else to do with us. You know, I'd go as far to say the worst parasites and animals on earth walk on 2 legs. That's what 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗂 says. So I think we have a lot to learn. I think, you know, this ancestral knowledge is so timeless that due to us not stimulating our pineal gland and analyzing this kind of information interpretively, it's made us more lost than ever before. You know what I love about animals the most is that morality is never debatable. You know, immorality, I think, was a result of having too much free will and free time for free thought. And, you know, a bunch of nonsense has derived from it. But when you look at, like, for example, a leopard, the leopard has one goal. His goal is survival. His goal is procreation. His goal is, you know, legacy. And I think if more people focused on those fundamentals of life rather than thinking about all the other nonsense that the establishment wants us to get distracted by, I think we'd be better as a society. But, you know, not everybody is able to focus like that. So it's something to learn. Yeah.
And before we move on, I wanted to get a quick refresher on the vulture, which is Babaluaye, right?
Actually, the vulture is pretty much Oshun.
Oshun.
It has aspects that have to do with Babaluaye as well, because ultimately he has to do with cadavers and things like that. She's going to get her own episode for sure because, you know, that's my Oshun. My Oshun is 𝗵𝗂𝗍𝗲. And, you know, really important as well. Like, all of them had their own space, but the vulture is seen as the personal, you know, pet of Olodumare, you know, because it's the animal I think it's the Harpy's griffin vulture. It's the one that flies it's the highest flying bird, period. You know, they've seen it, you know, like Mount Everest levels, I think. And it actually, you know, this knowledge was already identified in the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗂, where the peacock flew to heaven and transformed into the vulture on her way there. And, you know, getting so close to the sun, she lost all her feathers. They turned black. She lost her hair, etc. So she's going to get her own episode. But what was your question, though?
No, just a refresher.
I mean, yeah, it's the most important animal on Earth. I think the honeybee is actually above it.
Yeah.
Ironically, both animals that have to do with Oshun. The honeybee has to do with Orisha as well because of the germination and crops and things like that. But the vulture, without it, the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗂 says it, when the vulture wasn't, you know, available, epidemics started because, you know, we had all this roadkill and we were sacrificing animals and there was no form of organic disposal. You know, we had a very, very serious issue. But the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍𝗂 was where the vulture performed sacrifice so that it would never go hungry. It's the only animal that's never died of starvation, whatsoever. You know, so, and that's just one patakis of many. Like, I don't even have to reiterate that one when we do that episode, because there's so much beautiful literature on that bird or the peacock. You know, even the bird that represents Osun is huge, like the 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁𝗹 bird. The rooster as well has a bunch of mythology. It it really goes on. And the beautiful thing is as you learn about each of them, you're delving into so many different 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗄s and patakis. Like if you look at the leopard, I think we cited like 5 or 6 𝗀𝗲𝗿s, different signs that talk about each of the different aspects of that character. So there's enough to go around for sure. So I'm excited about it because it really provided the basis of my Ifa knowledge. Like a lot of people are like, Baba, what are your study routines? What would you interact with? What would you focus on? For anybody that really wants to learn Ifa, you have to get Discovery Plus or whatever it is. Get that stream, or I don't know who else has good stuff, but that National Geographic, like all that stuff, you have to watch all of it. Netflix, like Mira and I will get into the story about the apes and stuff like that. We'll have an episode on them. But there's a great documentary on Netflix as well called Animal. I'm not sure if it's still there, but that's a must watch for anybody that wants to, study Ifa and get a fulfillment of angles of counter introspection and analysis. Whenever you're actually breaking down an 𝗀𝗲𝗿 and an animal is a focal point, you really want to have, that visual background on each of them, because all of that could be applicable in a consultation. So huge part of my coursework.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what time it is?
Oh man, members.
That's right. All right, guys. It's that time to show a spotlight to the people who show love to our channel. And it's real simple. Just hit that button that's directly under your screen. It says join our membership program. We have 3 separate tiers. All different tiers offer all different types of perks, whether it's extra shows, live shows just for you, early releases, discounts on merch, discounts on courses, you name it. So today, we're going to go to the premium super fans here.
Nice.
All right. So we are going to spotlight, like I did before, their total time as members. So we're doing the newbies here. Okay.
Very nice.
We got premium super fans. We got Mark Harris.
Thank you,
25
Mark.
days.
Very nice.
We got from all the way from the other side, Big Pun.
Okay.
At 1 month.
I don't want to be a player no more.
We got Maddie J at 2 months.
Yeah, shout out to Pun, man. Yeah.
We
Shout
got
out to Maddie.
Shireen Jacobson
Awesome.
at 2 months.
Welcome.
We got Frank Omo Shango at 3 months.
Shout out to the Shango children. Yeah.
We got the Black Adonis at 3 months.
Oh, wow.
We got Aquas at 3 months.
Nice.
We got Ramona Brown at 3 months. And rounding out the premium super fans, we got Jay Palacio at 4 months.
Very nice. Welcome, guys. You're the best part of the channel for sure. Let somebody know if you feel they can get some value from our membership, with all of the tiers offering something different for each level as far as what you want to gain out of Ifa Orisha within Our Roots podcast. Couple different things always going on. The classes are matriculating. Be sure to look at those if you're interested. The workshop is every day getting closer and closer for you to be able to come and experience Ifa with us here in Orlando for the first of many. Depending on the city we're going to be doing them in and things like that. Very exciting stuff. The Botanica Candles and More website is up and running per usual for all service and product needs as far as shipping. You can catch us on any of the audio platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple. Be sure to like, comment, share, definitely subscribe if you haven't. Big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast, guys, and until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.